good morning, everybody. It's great to be back, and it's good to see everybody here again. This is the 5th annual JNUC. It's a 5th annual JNUC. That's pretty amazing to me. When I look back at some of the earlier pictures, and we'll go through a few of those things. It's amazing. This is our 4th year at the Guthrie, and before we go any further, I just want a round of applause for Mitch and Jake and the people from the Guthrie for what they do for us and putting this on. And Karen as well from the Guthrie. Karen! All right. We've got a ton of people in the audience today. We've got a number of presenters. Cam told you guys how to identify those. We've got a ton of attendees here. We've got JAMF people that have been working on putting this on since last year. We've got board members. We've got all of us here together. We're really excited about what we're going to share with you guys this morning. For those who don't know, I think they introduced me. I'm Chip Pearson. I've been doing JAMF for lots and lots of years. Apple Enterprise. This is, they said we're going to have a bunch of new material. There's some things that just endure, and this is one of them for me, this Apple and the Enterprise. And this really is about you guys and about the work that you do every day. This is about, helping organizations succeed with Apple. You guys are Apple Enterprise. You guys are Apple in organizations because it's you guys who every day make sure that business users, people working for the federal government, state government, other countries' governments, the work that we do with teachers, the work you do with students, is changing their lives. It's changing their lives in the way that they connect with technology. And in turn, they're changing our lives. We're excited to be a part of this story, a small part of your story, and we're excited to be doing this with you guys and sharing the stuff that we've got today. Now, we look at demographics for this thing, and it's pretty amazing. This is back from an 80s movie called War Games. But you guys have come from 4 different continents. You've come from 15 different countries. There's 1,300 people registered for this event this year, which is almost double what we had attending last year. In the U.S., we have 48 of the 50 U.S. states represented in the attendees today. And I do believe that next year, the fine people of Delaware in Louisiana, wherever our camera's at, I'm calling you out, Delaware and Louisiana. We'd love to see you guys here with us again next year. But if we do a quick show of hands, how many people were at that very first JNUC we did before we were here at the Guthrie? Handful of people. All right, guys, thanks for coming back. How about if you've been to more than one JNUC? Show of hands for, awesome. Guys, thanks for coming back more than 1 year. Coming once and then wanting to come back? Pretty amazing. How many people, though, is it your very first JAMF Nation User Conference you've attended? Holy cow, you guys are outnumbering us. Now, everybody who didn't have their hand up that last time, look around. You're outnumbered, but help those guys, get integrated and keep making this a great conference. Every year, this thing has gotten bigger, and with your continued support, we'll be able to continue on doing that. Now, it wasn't always this way. We didn't always have First Avenue's main room for our party. We didn't have the big stage at the Guthrie. What did we have back in the day before we even started JNUC? We had our office. And honest to God, that was our office back in 2008. And that was one of the earliest user group parties that we had in an officially JAMF-sanctioned space. Around that time, we also did parties at Macworld and WWDC. How many people went to any of those parties where we had maybe an open bar and people made some good decisions? All right, good times. Those were really good times. That's changed, though, a little bit. And occasionally, we would rent a conference room at a hotel in New York, and we would try to pile as many people into that room as we possibly could. And we'd have these types of events there as well. We'd have those types of events there as well. But in 2010, it changed. And we got serious. And we had our very first JNUC. We got serious. We got so serious that 100 people showed up. We were so serious that we had 1 tray of donuts and 1 air pot of coffee for 100 people. And we learned about logistics. and we learned about logistics. That was also the last year I was in charge of JNUC, and Cam's been running it ever since. Cam Evian, ladies and gentlemen. Then we found our home here at the Guthrie, and we couldn't have been happier. I mean, this is an amazing building, but how the staff has worked with us as well has made us feel like we're at home. We've been coming here every year since then, and as long as we can, we will keep the JNUC at the Guthrie. Our first year in 2011, when we had about 250 people show up. Then we go forward to 2012, great lunch shot. We had about 350 people. Last year, 700 folks registered here in the Guthrie, and as I mentioned, this year, over 1,300 people attending. And that, I mean, just blows my mind. That blows all of our minds, actually. And when we think about it, one thing has stayed consistent through the years, is that you guys have come together in a spirit of learning and teaching and community. And how we know that this spirit is alive and well from some of those early parties that we did, all the way through to what we're doing today, is really about the content. It's really about the sessions that you guys put on for each other. There's good lunch. We got a lot of lunch. We got 2 hours of lunch. Good lunch. And that's one of the things we've heard is that JAMF never sends you away without enough calories. We'll make sure you're sufficiently fed. Second thing, we've got amazing evening recreational activities. Have fun with those. Have fun with those. But ultimately, it's about the sessions. It's about the sessions that you guys do for each other that make this thing really come together. Now, we've checked the web traffic of all the events that we've put online, and we see that there are some of last year's sessions that really get a lot of traffic. Rich has got a topic he loves to talk about, File Vault 2 and encryption on the Mac. From there, and it's not just because Eric and Kevin are great authors, but talking about Mac deployment strategies and what they're doing. Also, huge session that's lived on beyond the JNUC. From there, David talked about securing the Macs in the enterprise. Clicker will get caught up with me. David, man. And then Sandy and Shane, John, and Brenda talking about Casper Focus with Dave. These are all sessions from last year. This year, we've got 34 sessions for you, including the keynote. And what we find really amazing about this is that out of all those sessions that we've got, 28 of them are led by you guys. 28 out of 34 of the sessions that we're going to be seeing over the next 3 days are ones you guys are doing for each other. That's huge. That's encouraging. That's you guys standing up from the crowd and saying, I've got something that I'd like to show somebody else. We've done something here that we think is working, and we'd like to share that. Not sell it, not put it together and keep that information, but share that with everybody. And we think that's really the spirit of the JNUC. We always want to provide the forum, the envelope for this content to go in, but it's really what you guys do for each other that we try to encourage. And what you guys do for each other is an example of what you guys do for your users every single day. Want to take a look at a quick video of some of the work that's being done by our friends out in the JAMF Nation.
My name is Anthony Patternis, and I'm a mathematics teacher at Hopkins High School, and I run a flipped classroom in my geometry classes. The basic theory behind a flipped classroom is you take what students normally did as homework, bring that into the classroom, and move what was direct instruction, put it into a video format, and put it outside of the instructional setting. So what the iPads do, it becomes a personalized and individualized experience for students within my classroom. It's an environment that engages students where they're at and gets them excited about what they're doing.
I really do believe that the Hopkins Public Schools are a leader in innovation and the strong implementation of technology. My focus is on developing the skill set of the teachers. What happens is that intermittently they're just going to have this aha moment where suddenly they just can see a way to transform the delivery of their content in a way that really excites them because they know that it's going to better engage the students.
That is the core focus of what we're doing. We're seeing students more engaged, and we're seeing students really grapple with the curriculum and want to go further with it using the digital devices. We're able to really hit learners where they are without anyone knowing. So for example, if I'm teaching a lesson and we're reading a book, I can have leveled text so the kids can read at their own level. No one in the class needs to know that, and that's because we're using iPads. So it's really dramatically shifted the way that we've done our instruction.
Technology is important, and I can't imagine my classroom without the tools that we have available, but it still comes down to good teaching. It's a matter of rethinking how you've done things in the past to infuse them with new technologies that kids are excited about, and that's what the iPads are allowing us to do.
Working on the scale of deployments, you have to have something backing that up, some sort of a tool to make that management happen over the air. And when we can do that seamlessly in the background, using the Casper suite to just enable those features, that's something that allows my staff to keep working on other tasks, that are much more important to keeping that technology available in the classroom.
Our focus is connecting kids with learning, connecting kids with their teachers, connecting kids with other kids. We're not thinking about connecting kids with technology. That technology is so integrated that we don't think of it as a separate thing. It is all part of the instructional strategies that we use every day in our classrooms.
You have access to visual learning in a way that you could not have done. When I was a physiology and anatomy teacher and I was teaching about bones and muscles and nerves, I was drawing them on transparencies. And now you can see inside the human body. And every student can do that at their seat at any time of the day. And that, blows my mind. That's so exciting.
Information is at kids' fingertips, and we just need to kind of focus them on how to use that information. And if we do that, I think the sky's the limit for students.
A round of applause for Hopkins. And John and a number of people from Hopkins Public Schools are here today. And it's an amazing story what those guys are doing. But for us, when we look at it, it's one of over 4,000 points of light that we see out there. When we think about what you guys are doing, what's happening across all of our customers, it's been amazing as we look at how many Macs, iPads, and iPhones the JAMF Nation is managing and has been since really the beginning of JAMF. Last year when we were up here, we talked about what you guys are doing, and we were just over 2.7 million Apple devices managed by the nation. In 1 year, you guys have added over 1 million devices, and we think we're going to be crossing the 4 million mark with you guys by the time it's the new year. It's exciting. It's exciting. But it wasn't always this way. It wasn't always this way. There was a time not long ago when people didn't believe in Apple, when people didn't subscribe to the way that Apple does what Apple does. And the world has been changing. But we want to go back to that earlier time, to that, way back to the dawn of Mac sys administration, to really kind of get the context and the building blocks of where we're at today. So back when I was at Valley Forge with General Washington, managing Macs, we used at ease. And at ease was awesome. At ease was powerful stuff. Anybody use at ease? Anybody? Yeah, wow, all right. I got an awesome at ease story. I didn't really know what it was. I had no idea what it was. That it could lock me out of the Finder. I could lock applications. So I went in, kind of new to this whole thing. It was a Performa 636 CD, Motorola processor. Remember this machine well because of this story. So I checked all the boxes and I rebooted it and locked myself completely out of my college girlfriend's computer. My college girlfriend's brand new computer. And so in my first act of system administration, I took the boot CD and I put it in and reinstalled everything. And my new career was born. And I learned about the power of system administration tools. Test before you actually ship, and maybe read the manual before you check all the boxes. So important lessons for me with at ease. Then Apple Remote Access. Holy cow, did this open up a world beyond Mac SLIP, beyond Mac TCP, Mac PPP, ARA, Apple Remote Access. And this allowed me to take my modem and dial into things. And where I worked, we set up Shiva net modems so you could get right on the LAN and the WAN. And we set that up. Same guy who did at ease, I'm setting up ARA to get into the network. That was pretty awesome. That was great. Super powerful. Then Apple came out with Apple Share IP. Ooh, powerful stuff. Powerful, powerful stuff. We could create users, file shares, grant privileges. We got to choose. We got to choose who got what as the Mac admins. It's awesome times. Mac Manager, which grew into Workgroup Manager, which has kind of become part of, into Profile Manager as part of that long evolution. Free tools from Apple, low-cost tools from Apple, really around administration of their devices. But there were great commercial products as well. My favorite was Timbuktu. Timbuktu was amazing, and a lot of people think of it as a screen sharing tool, which is true. But you could also use it to check directories and move files around and go directory by directory, copy, add, delete, add all the tip of your fingers. Retrospect. Oh, retrospect. The bane and the solution for many Mac sysadministrators. And I love these screenshots here because this is what we were actually backing up to, were tape drives. I mean, AIT, DAT, magneto-optical, jazz drives, zip drives, floptical, I think even makes the up there. And what's awesome about this is, yes, you could back up to the internet, but in brackets it says, to an FTP site. And how far backup has come. At that point, we could back up to an FTP site. And back then, with all of these tools at our command, we did everything. We did backups, remote access, screen sharing, locked apps, pushed out software with a collection of tools that were out there, and it was awesome. They're like gods in our time. We could do everything. World's different now, but one of the things that was true back then and these days is true today is that were people who taught me how to use these tools. There were people who taught me how to think like a carpenter when I would use these tools to take care of my users. And we see that spirit alive today. But now the world has gotten a lot more complex. Now the promise of Apple technology and the fulfillment of it largely is it's very simple for the user. It's very simple. It's easy to use, easy to access. I mean, how many people have actually needed a manual to understand how to use an iPhone? Right? I mean, it's simple to use. It's intuitive. But the reality is the world is filled with complexity. And I actually believe in all things that this relationship between simplicity and complexity always exists. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, what role do we play? You know, there's a cliche that says it's easy to make something hard, but it's hard to make something easy. And I would say likewise with the work that we do, to make it simple for our end users, we have to accept a level of complexity for ourselves. And when I think about the people in my life who make things simple, I'm very aware of the complexity that those guys have to go through to make things simple for me. I'm incredibly grateful for it. And the people that you guys work with are really grateful for taking all that complexity and making it simple for them. So all they have to do is push a button to get what they want. It's the work you guys do. But your world is getting more complex all the time. It's harder and harder to fight the war against complexity and make it simple for users with the rapid pace of technology and change. That's what we're going to be spending some time talking about in the sessions over the next couple of days. When we think about you guys and the role you play, and the role you play with your users, and how critical it is, we look at the complexities of your world and how your world is changing today. What were used to just be Mac admins, now we're administering a lot of different stuff. Your users have Macs, they have iPads, they have iPhones, largely in some way. They might even have some other phone that you have to manage too. I can't even say it. But you guys have a much heterogeneous environment than you used to. You got different support strategies. You got users bringing their own devices, in addition to devices that the institution owns, and you got to have different policies for all that. Getting more complex. The world of directory services, the big three that are out there. People use Open Directory, they use Novelli Directory, and they use Active Directory. You've got to make decisions about this oftentimes, and then you've got to make sure that you can implement it across all of your federated systems to support single sign-on. Not an easy task. Now, you might be in a world dominated by Windows machines. I am told by reputable people on good authority that there are still a lot of Windows machines out there. These are honest, good people, and I believe that there are still Windows computers out there. I guess, I'm told. But the thing is they're using SCCM and Altiris to manage those things. And those organizations want a single pane of glass to look at an inventory of all their devices. The world of apps is getting more complex. You got bushels full of apps that you've got to be deploying. You've got apps that are going to iPad, iPhone, and Macs. But it's not just apps anymore. It also gets down to books and PDFs that you want to distribute, that people are expecting you to get out. Whether this is internal communications, regulatory compliance manuals, textbooks, literature, you guys are putting books and PDFs on people's devices. Backup has changed. Backup has changed. And whether you're using CrashPlan, whether you're using an iCloud backup or some other third party, you guys are still dealing with this, but now the choices are much different than magneto-optical or Trevan. Security. In a world that seems to need more and more security all the time, and we always seem to be behind with security, you guys are dealing with this. And whether you've got a Microsoft Certificate Authority, Symantec's PKI, if you're a Cisco ISE shop, an Aruba shop, if you're doing Aerohive's cooperative control, you've got to be dealing with security policies and making decisions and implementing these things all together. Then the rise of the cloud. You have data centers, there's public cloud, private cloud, hybrids, premise-based solutions, and your guys' organizations are all across the spectrum of how you're going to deliver services. But it is no longer that Apple Share Workgroup server in the corner that you can walk over to. Your world is changing quite a bit. And we think about delivery down to end users. The day we just pushed everything out may still be the day you're living in. You may also make things accessible to your users through a portal like self-service, or have your teachers managing classrooms who are not IT people with Casper Focus. A world that is getting much more complex. But at the center of this world is you. And at the center of the world is you and the people that you support. What's great about this world is you're not alone. What we do when we meet here together, 1,300 strong, is one portion of how we connect, platforms that we provide. To talk a little bit more about another way of connecting, I'd like to introduce Jake Mosey, who's a product manager here at JAMF Software, to talk about one of our favorite products.
Thanks, Hank. Wow, good morning. So Chip talking about how this is really about you. This isn't the JAMF user conference, this is the JAMF Nation user conference. It's really about the community and other people helping others. It's really cool. He mentioned 28 of the 34 sessions this week are about are delivered from people in the community, talking about solutions that or problems they're dealing with, giving real-world solutions. Really cool to see. So since our initial launch of JAMF Nation, we launched it in November of 2011. We now have over 18,000 members. So this completely self-moderated community is just filled with people who continue to take time out of their day to go talk about problems they're having and how they might want to solve them, or give advice or tips on how other people can solve those problems. Over 4,000 discussions were created last year, everywhere from managing activation lock to deploying Mavericks, now Yosemite, or preventing the deployment of those. It's not only about the Casper suite, it's about Mac administration or about iOS administration, just really Apple administrators. People, even the open source community has been reaching out. We see a lot of people sharing their own tools. The really cool thing is some of these integrate with the Casper suite, extend the capabilities of the Casper suite, but it's also a great forum for people to share what they're working on and relevant topics in the industry. Cool thing is with all this valuable content out here, other people have taken note. Over 175 organizations last year posted jobs to JAMF Nation that were available. They look at the community and they think, these are people that we want, these guys have the skill set that we need in our organization, and we want them to come work for us. So super cool to kind of see that. I always get excited when I see new jobs get posted. And I mean, we're talking very large companies, well-respected organizations, everywhere from education to the commercial sector. So really great to see. If there's jobs open in your orgs, please go look at JAMF Nation. You can absolutely post out there. Also, we're seeing a huge uptick in user groups being formed. We can't have a JAMF Nation every week. We might drink Minnesota out of beer, but there's user groups being formed all around the world. In 26 different ones, 16 different cities. These are only the ones that get scheduled through JAMF Nation. But I know there's more going on. I see some people in the crowd who formed their own. Really, really cool. So with these user groups, I guess it's just an opportunity to go and meet people in real life. You kind of get used to communicating just in the virtual space, and it's kind of neat to go and meet people in your area and really speak with them and learn about what they're doing, what are the common problems they're having, just another way to get together. So again, you can create your own user group in JAMF Nation as well if you're willing to just allocate some time or resources. It's really a great way to meet new people. So last year, we introduced something called the Dean's List. And what this really is recognizing a few members of the community that were particularly extraordinary in one way or the other. And we want to continue the tradition this year. JAMF Software has JAMF issued hoodies to all of their employees, and these members will also be getting one. So if I call your name, please walk up here. I have some lovely presentation girls coming out to present some hoodies. So the first person I want to call up. He's been really instrumental in organizing some of the DFW user groups in Texas. Also very active in the community, always looking to help and lend a hand. You might know him. It's Steve Wood. Steve here. The second one, you may have seen him if you frequent JAMF Nation. Again, very active in the community, has actually worked with Steve a few times. Steve, congratulations, man. He's worked with Steve a few times to set up some of those user groups. Don Montalvo. Third one, a great friend from overseas. Again, very active. He's actually set up one of his own kind of Mac or Apple administration user groups over in London, Ben Toms. The service around here. And the last one, I'm really proud of him. I think I've always see him welcome new members with open arms. Very active in the community, always providing solutions in a really constructive way. And we really appreciate that. That's Mike Morales. So these are the 4 members that we've particularly really thought were extraordinary this year. We know that it takes more than 4 people to build this community and to be a member of it and to add value every day. So thank you all very much for that. And thank you guys. Give them a round of applause. So some of you might be thinking, who's this dean? Like, what's going on? Who's the JAMF Nation dean? I'm going to be passing it over to someone here to be speaking about how JAMF software is going to help provide technology and some solutions for these complex scenarios and these environments that you guys work in today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce JAMF Software's CTO and the JAMF Nation dean, Mr. Jason Woody.
I'm sure Jake has other names besides Dean that we'll see how it goes through the rest of the week. But thanks for coming this morning. Good stuff. And I have the opportunity and the honor to chat about a few things that we feel are important for you guys going forward, how JAMF can help, as Jake had said. Limited amount of time, we picked out a few of them that we thought would be the most relevant, kind of start the conversation, but certainly find your JAMF team with the lanyards as we go through, have a conversation, and see how we can help as we're going through the week. First one that I wanted to chat about, though, is this idea of the JAMF Cloud. I'll face this way, make sure I keep it in the microphone. JAMF Cloud is not something that's necessarily new. We've been offering the capability to host your Casper Suite infrastructure, your JSS, for some time. But as we had gone through product release and a few changes at JAMF late this summer, we added the capability to have your environment be fully hosted, fully managed, and included with your Casper Suite as part of our subscription offering. Why is that important to you? What's relevant, and why do we think that this is something that's significant? If you were someone who has Casper Suite infrastructure, you're managing it, you're running it in your environment, and it's operating exactly the way that you want, there's no change for you. We're committed to developing and continuing to implement the capabilities that you need and expect from us so that you can get the work done that's critical to your organization and your users. But if you're in a spot where you never want to do another MySQL backup, you never want to do another JSS upgrade, you have an Xserve that you're trying to figure out how you're going to migrate your infrastructure sometime. They're still out there. There's a number of you. I see you nodding your head. And if you're in a spot where you just want to be back to, I want to manage the infrastructure that my users see as critical and leave the rest of that to us, we have an opportunity to do that. So how do you get there? The offer that we're talking about right now, those of you who are customers and been committed to JAMF software, if you are interested in that, you have the opportunity to pay your next year's maintenance renewal right now, same price that you would have paid to keep the licenses that you have. We'll convert them to subscription and migrate you to our cloud infrastructure at your convenience. The thing that's important about this is that we still believe that your data is your data. And if you ever need to, with the subscription license, be able to bring that back on premise, be able to use your data and have access to it in a way that you want, it's still yours, and that's our commitment. But if you want to take take an opportunity to look at that offer and chat with us about it, and if that's something that's right for you, find us at the solutions desk, bring it up, and let's figure out how we can do that. We have migration services that are there and capable, and again, do it at your convenience. The idea here is you do it what's right for your organization and the best way to consume the Casper Suite as you see fit. The next topic that I wanted to have an opportunity to share a little bit about what we're thinking and where we're going is the JAMF distribution server. We refer to it as the JDS most of the time. And what we've heard as we've been listening is that you expect more from it. I think that it's been loud and clear. We have been listening. And here's a few of the things that we've heard and we're committed to taking care of for you as we go forward. The first is that it needs to support the Macs, the Linux servers and the Windows servers that are there in your environment. Be able to support the functions that you expect for enterprise distribution, replication, and managing that hierarchy. Second, you want it to be self-updating, so that when you install your JSS, you do your upgrade, or if you have that in our cloud and you have a JDS on your site, it's able to update itself and continue to be managed. You want direct uploads, and make sure that it doesn't have to go through another piece of technology or another piece of infrastructure to be able to manage that on your site. And you want seamless imaging workflows. It should work in every workflow that you expect out of the Casper suite, whether you're managing 50,000 iPads, 50,000 personal phones, or 50,000 Macs. You expect the technology that's in front of you to work, scale, and meet those needs. We're committed to delivering that. And here's the major thing that you need to know. When is that you'll get a chance to see it, right? That's the important question. And the answer is when it's ready. How do we know? One of the things that we also have learned and listened is that you guys are the ones who know when it's ready. We can make an assumption, we can ship some things, and when we don't hit it perfect on the first try, we're going to stop, listen, and work with you guys to validate it. So take an opportunity to sign up, work with us through our beta program, get access to the technology, provide the feedback. We're listening with JAMF Nation, we're listening through our support and account management relationships, and we want to continue to work and innovate and develop that for all of you guys. That's the next iteration of the JDS, and look for it as we move forward here through 2015. So what's the next topic that I wanted to share a little bit about today? This one isn't necessarily new, but I wanted to take a few minutes while I have this stage to explain and maybe share a little bit about what our thinking is as we talk about bring your own devices. Chip talked about the complexity, the environment that you're in, and it's very rare today that we see individuals in your organizations that have one and only one device. Wouldn't it be that easy? So multiple devices, have a personal phone, have my Mac that's been put on my desk, and potentially, as Chip had pointed out, there's other devices when we have users who are able to choose and bring in what they feel is right for them. So how do we work and how do we manage that? The thing that we have tried to do and want to continue to move forward is to make sure that we are managing the usage of the device that's applicable and appropriate. So what does that mean? If it's a personal device, the idea that the user has a great deal of trust in the IT organization for what they're giving to be able to have their personal device be managed, and how we do that transparently through enrollment, through communicating exactly what technology capabilities we have for that device, but also provide that view for the enterprise or the IT organization so that you know that it's secured, that you know you have the right versions and access for that individual to get to what they need. So how do you blend that together? And what we introduced in late summer was the idea of a personal device inside of your JSS. So where does that go and how does that fit as we move forward? The idea is you manage the right device with the right set of technology for the capabilities. And we see this as something that we're starting with today. We added the Android capability. Again, as a user brings in a phone, we don't always get to choose what it is that they've selected. We expect to continue to add capabilities for the idea of personal devices, but really what we're starting to see is the shift to managing the way the user works, right? We're managing the usage of the device for the user. And as we add capabilities, the idea that we've seen with presentation last week from Apple again as 1010 Yosemite was released about moving between multiple devices and the world that we operate and live in for those knowledge workers, that's the world that JAMF is trying to help you guys as IT administrators solve. That no matter what gets put in front of you, you have the right tools and the right technology to make sure that your users have what they need quickly, seamlessly, and with a high degree of trust. So that's a personal device. What has changed in the world of institutionally owned devices? The device enrollment program and the volume purchase program are we often refer to them in the Apple world as DEP and VPP, right? I'm sure that somewhere along the line, if you're here, that's popped up. These two programs have to do with how we manage from an institutional side the enrollment and getting a device to a managed state, as well as how we provision and apply applications and content to those devices. Maybe the most significant changes that have been put in front of us from Apple in a long time as an enterprise IT administrator. And why is it important? What we are capable of with these two programs when used in conjunction is giving the same magical experience to a user that they have when they get their first iOS device on their birthday, that holiday when they get it. They unbox it and they walk through the setup assistant. There's this simple workflow that they're able to get to what they need very, very quickly. So how do we take advantage of that and experience that same thing from an IT organization? How do we give that experience to the user? And that's where these two programs and a little bit of technology that I want to show you comes back into play. These programs have been around for a number of months, and for those of you who are traveling from outside of the US, they're still being rolled out and put into place as we look at Apple and how they stage things throughout the globe in the Apple ecosystem. But the example and the demo that I wanted to show you today is with a couple of changes to 10.10 Yosemite and what we introduced with the 9.6 version of the Casper suite. This is going to be a 10.10 Mac that we've set up for the device enrollment program. What you're seeing is that I've unboxed it. We are choosing a wireless network. This would happen to be a MacBook Air. And as I join, you're going to see that because of what I've set up in the JSS for the device enrollment program, this device already has a number of settings that are applied to it and saved to the Apple servers. So the very first minute that this device joins up and connects to the network, we're going to see the settings from JAMF software are being applied to this device, and a number of the selections that a user normally has to make are taken care of. And while this by itself, again, was something that was available on iOS and was a capability that's inside of the previous releases of OS X, what you're going to see now is that this device is fully managed, and in the background, policies are already running, packages are being installed, and in just a second, self-service launches, fully managed device, and the user can finish provisioning that for themselves. That experience with no IT involvement, but still having the full view and capability from IT to provision that device is the magical experience that Apple, I believe, is setting the standard for us for, and that we're working at JAMF, and I think all of you guys are, to enable your users in your environment to take advantage of. How do we get the critical technology in front of the users that are out there and do so in a meaningful way while saving our critical time inside of IT and making sure that we have the right things immediately for those users. Couple of things that I want to be able to chat about with all of you guys as we walk through the week, but I'm going to bring Zach Holmstead back out, and he's got a few things that he wants to talk about where we're going with the Casper suite as we move forward. So I got this thing I got to take care of real quick. I want to get a selfie.
You guys squeeze in a little bit.
Thanks, man.
He'll probably post that on his MySpace page later. Good morning, everyone. Very excited to be able to have an opportunity to share with you 3 different prototypes that we've been working on today. Woody and Chip both talked this morning a little bit about how the world is changing when it comes to what users have in the way of devices. We see a lot more environments where a user actually has 2 to 3 devices, where the world we might have grown up in, a user had 1 device. The first 2 demos that I'm going to show you this morning are related directly to this idea of users that have multiple devices. The first one we refer to as My Devices. This was a little bit inspired by iCloud for us, and we have 2 major goals that we're trying to accomplish with this first iteration. The first is to provide additional transparency into what is managed for your end users, and the second is to start giving self-service the capability to manage across devices. See here self-service getting launched, and in the upper right-hand corner, we'll see a new link that's called My Devices. And when the user clicks into this, they actually see all of the devices that are associated with them in the JSS. you see some basic information there. You see serial number, you see the model, you see the operating system it's running, similar things that you might see when you plug a device into iTunes. And you also see a couple management commands that are now exposed to the end user. So if they've lost their device, they can actually wipe that themselves, similar to if they were enrolled in iCloud, without having to interact with IT. If they've locked themselves out of another device that they have right next to them, they can actually unlock that right through there. This functionality that you see in the OS X version of self-service is also available in the iOS version of self-service. The second demo I'd like to do that's related to users with multiple devices, we've entitled Linked Installations. This last summer, Apple introduced the idea of continuity and handoff at WWDC. We were really inspired by that idea of seamlessly moving between your Mac and your iPad and your iPhone. And we started wondering what different things we could do to help end users seamlessly manage their Mac and their iPad and their iPhone. We started thinking, if a user wants an app or a setting or a book on one of their devices, there's a really good chance that they might want it on all of their devices. We're going to walk through a little setup of what linked actions or linked installations look like. In this JSS, we already have a policy on the OS X side that installs Evernote, and we are now going to add a mobile device app from the App Store of Evernote. Hopefully it finds it. There we go. We're going to add that to our catalog here, and we'll do a couple simple settings that you would do when you add a mobile device app. We'll add it to a category. Since this is a free app for this demo, we're going to scope it to every device in our JSS. Now when we go to the self-service tab, there's a new option. You see this linked installation. And what that means is we can take this mobile device application and link it to anything on the OS X side that's a deployable object. So we'll have configuration profiles, we'll have ebooks, and at the bottom we have our policies. So we're choosing that existing policy to install Evernote on an OS X computer. Once we save that, that actually links that both ways. So now when I go into self-service on OS X, I find the Evernote policy, and when we click install, you'll see that policy kick off right away, but it's also going to prompt us to see if we want to install that on our other devices. When we click install, you should see that pop up on my iPhone right next to it. That exact same thing would happen to the iPad that's also associated with that user. If you're in an environment where the user happened to have multiple Macs, that same policy would be able to run on that Mac at the same time. And this works the exact same way from the iOS side. So if the user had initiated this from self-service on the iOS side, you would see this start installing on the Mac as well. Like I said earlier, this applies not just for applications, but also for profiles and ebooks, giving the ability for an end user to install any of that content on all of their devices from a single spot. So my devices, linked actions, are hopefully things that we're providing for you that will allow you to give your end users a better experience. The last thing I want to talk about this morning is something that's much more about making your lives better, not your end users. And that's the topic of patch management. As Jake mentioned earlier, we first shipped JAMF Nation in November of 2011. For those of you who were around at the JNUC that year or were in the community, we had a third-party product section that we introduced on day one. It was really about taking all the information we have about any software title and linking them together. So we had knowledge-based articles, we had managed preference manifests, we had extension attributes, discussions happening on JAMF Nation, scripts that were in the community, all those things were tied to that single software title. We also had some very light functionality for tracking the latest version of a piece of software, as well as where you actually acquire that latest download from the vendor. Our vision at that time was actually to build JAMF Nation as the resource that your JSS would utilize to get the latest information about every single piece of software in your environment. We're finally getting around to realizing that vision. We've been incredibly impressed with the different patch management solutions that we've seen out in the community over the last few years. And today I'm excited to give you a preview of what we're doing to do that in the JSS. So you'll see here, I'm going to add a new patch. And what this is doing right now is going out to JAMF Nation, acquiring all of the manifests that define what software looks like and what patches JAMF Nation knows about. It's scanning your entire JSS to determine which ones are relevant in your environment. This is a JSS of about 550 max. And when it gets done with that, we see a list of all the relevant patches for this environment. We also see the current version that the vendor has released out there, how many copies we have in that environment. And we're going to go see what this looks like for Microsoft Office for Mac 2011. See that we've got 114 copies that are already up to date. We have options for what we would like to happen when a new version is available, if we want to be notified or if we just want it to update automatically. And also options for how we want that deployed on a Mac. Do we want to deploy that automatically, or do we want to make it available in self-service for our end users to deploy on their own, or do we want to find a middle ground there? Here we've got a dashboard of the status of what those patches look like. So it's a very quick high-level overview of what we're working on and what our vision is for how we want to implement patch management. A couple of the biggest benefits that are probably somewhat obvious here, but I'm going to go through them. One is there will no longer be the need to manually download or repackage updates. Once you've got that package, you'll no longer need to maintain that. You'll no longer need to maintain the policy that goes along with that. You'll no longer need to maintain the smart computer groups that calculate the clients that need those updates. All of that is handled seamlessly by the JSS. Lastly is the flexible options for how those can be deployed to your clients. If that's force immediately for important updates, if you want to make those available in self-service very easily for end users, or choose that path in between where they can do that for some amount of time and then you apply it. Our goal is to completely remove one of the most monotonous tasks that's out in front of you today. So between Woody and I, we've talked about 4 different things that we're working on today. Hopefully, it sounds like you're excited about a couple of them. You're probably wondering when we're going to do that. Our primary focus over the next couple months is actually going to be on quality and bug fixing. The 4 items that you see listed up here are not going to ship in the same release. They're going to be sprinkled over the next 2 to 3 major releases that we do, along with a few other things that we're working on. As we know more about what that schedule is, we'll communicate with you guys via the beta program. We're really excited to get these out into the beta program and then into production and get your feedback on them. If you're not in the beta program yet and would like to be part of that, it's free. Go into JAMF Nation, click sign up for the beta program, and we'll get you in there so you know exactly what's coming. Before we close out here today, there's something else that we've been working on at JAMF. About 6 months ago, we were incredibly lucky to have Charles Edge join us here at JAMF. I'm going to turn it over to him. Thanks, Charles.
Hey, guys. Thanks, Zach. So when a lot of people in the audience asked me what I was doing here at JAMF, I kind of coyly responded that I was just kind of hanging out on the roof, cooking brats, because I wasn't attached to any projects. But it turns out that I was. It also turns out that when we showed the number of devices previously, we actually missed a few. And the reason we missed a few is because we have a new product that's been in a private beta, and we weren't including those devices yet. And so I'm here today to announce Bushel. Bushel is a new Apple management tool aimed at smaller organizations. Bushel is meant to be simple. Bushel is hosted. Bushel has practically no learning curve, and Bushel can be set up in just a couple of minutes. Bushel is tailored for the non-technical. We didn't want to impact the aggressive production schedule of Casper, so we brought in a whole new team to design, develop, implement, market, and support Bushel. Bushel complements everything else we do at JAMF Software by helping our less technical coworkers succeed with their own bushel of Apple devices. Bushel is built for small businesses and work groups within large organizations. We call these organizations the Fortune 5 million. We've developed a whole new approach to managing Apple devices for these Fortune 5 million. For the people in the room, though, nothing really changes. You have coworkers and friends who just need a tiny bit of help managing these Apple devices. Bushel is for them. What do you need to know? Well, probably very little. You see, if you're in this room, we're guessing that IT is your career. And Bushel is made for people who have IT as a task. But as a trusted source for these people, you can help us spread the word about Bushel. And like all big news, we wanted to share this with our family first, and JAMF Nation is our family to some degree. And so we wanted to give you the first chance to learn about Bushel. Why would you care? Well, as the trusted source of all things Apple to your friends, we're guessing that you're pretty busy because Apple's getting to be a pretty big deal these days, right? So we just wanted to give you the chance to have an awesome tool like Casper, but a little less complicated for your friends. Didn't skip. So when someone's job doesn't involve managing computers and learning all about the X's and O's of mass deployments, that's who Bushel's for. What does Bushel do? Bushel manages basic mail security settings. It's a pretty simple tool. It's MDM. Bushel also manages BPP. And Bushel can use DEP, so you can ship devices to coworkers and have them automatically set up. But most importantly, Bushel empowers your colleagues. And by empowering your colleagues, we're hoping that it lets you win some of your weekends back so that you can show up nice and refreshed on Monday morning. Thanks, Chip. So Bushel's free for a few devices, simple to get started. There's two ways if you want to know more about what Bushel's doing. The first is go to bushel.com today. The website's up, it's live, you can sign up. Right now, we're scaling out the servers, so we're in an invitation-only mode, kind of like Ella's doing right now. Or, second way, you can hit up our session tomorrow at 1:30 at the Dowling studio. We didn't put the title as Bushel because we didn't want to ruin the surprise, but hopefully I see a bunch of faces there. So, Chip and Zach, if you'd like to come back up. And while you're on the way, a special thanks to Chip and Zach for bringing me in. It's been a very special experience building a new product, and it's been an even more special experience being at JAMF. So, thanks.
That's awesome. Close out very quickly here this morning. Sincere thank you to all of you from the 343 JAMFs. Doesn't look like that many in that picture. It's so small. There are 343 of us that are here, either in person this week or remotely. We all thank you very much for being here and being part of this community.
Right on. So guys, listen, we covered a lot of technologies, stuff that we're going to be doing, a lot of things, a lot of tools that go in the toolbox. Over the next couple of days, you're going to be teaching each other how to use those tools, sharing some of your best practices with each other. We got a great year behind us and an even better year in front of us. We hope to God you guys have a great time this week. Thanks for making it out.